I remember meeting this 3-year-old version of me who her belief was that she was only worthy of love and connection when she was sick or suffering. I had done so much therapy. I had done all this personal development, and I knew exactly what I needed to do, but I just couldn't get myself to do it.
You mentioned depressive episodes. Can you say more about what those were like for you and how they were holding you back?
I was in a depressive episode, beating myself up and feeling like I had wasted $14,000 on this procedure that gave me a less than 50% chance at having a kid. I have literally invested $150,000 in my personal development over the last 15 years, and I can, without a doubt, say that Enfold was single-handedly the best investment I've ever made in myself.
Welcome to Still In It, 5-MeO DMT Stories. I'm your host, Arthur. Whether you're curious, preparing for your own journey, or reflecting on past experiences, we hope these stories resonate, inform, and inspire. Please enjoy today's episode.
This podcast is brought to you by Enfold, offering the world's most comprehensive 5-MeO DMT program. To learn more, visit enfold.org. That's enfold.org, or click on the link in the show notes.
Well, today on the podcast, I'm so pleased to be joined by Amanda, who visited us at Enfold in July of 2025. It's now late October of 2025, so it's been about 4 months or so since we saw you, since you came to visit us. And Amanda lives in Toronto. She's an entrepreneur and leadership coach. And Amanda, thanks so much for joining me today.
Thanks for having me, Arthur.
Yeah, it's our pleasure. So Amanda, if you can recall, when did you first hear about 5-MeO DMT?
For the first time back in 2019. I remember a friend telling me about his experience with it and him telling me that within seconds, his body just took on this pose and he was stuck there for 10 to 15 minutes. And I just remember at the time thinking, that sounds way too intense. Like, this medicine is not for me. And funny enough, in 2023, I had my friend May actually tell me about Enfold, which I had completely forgotten about because I think when I went to the website, she had raved about the experience. When I went to the website and saw that it was 5, I wrote it off again. And I was just like, too intense. But what's funny is it's almost like there was a part of me that knew that I might come back to it because I made a note in my personal references in Asana that just said Enfold Bowen Island and just left it there. And what's funny is when I was packing for my Enfold intensive, I have this packing list in my personal references in Asana, and I opened it up and I just happened to see the note that I had made back in 2023. And it was really funny because I think that the medicine calls you when you're ready for it. And, those 2 times when I'd heard about it, I wasn't ready. But yeah, this summer, I felt ready.
Can you identify what was it in you that felt ready? Were there certain things that you were ready to work on, to bring to the intensive with us at Enfold?
Yeah, I would say the thing that really resonated with me about what I read on your website about 5 was that it has the ability to bypass the thinking mind and go straight to a nervous system reset. And kind of leading up to me saying yes to Enfold, so last April, or I guess this April, I had just frozen my eggs. It didn't go as well as I had hoped. I was in a depressive episode, kind of beating myself up and feeling like I had wasted $14,000 on this procedure that gave me kind of a less than 50% chance at having a kid. And so I was, in this really dark place, and just feeling really stuck as well. Like, not only was I shaming myself for that, I was also just procrastinating a ton on work. I was having a really hard time responding to messages from friends and just feeling stuck and overwhelmed. And I just knew at some intuitive level that I had done so much work leading up until that point. I had done so much therapy. I had done all this personal development, and I knew exactly what I needed to do, but I just couldn't for the life of me get myself to do it. And I just knew at some level that something was stuck at a nervous system or a somatic or a subconscious level. And I remember getting an email from Enfold May 1st, I think, and just reading about the Awakening to Life Intensive. And there was just something in that email that said, if you've tried all the things that are supposed to work, like the therapy and the retreats, and something still feels stuck, this is for you. And I remember going to the website and just, reading about how 5 has the ability to bypass the thinking brain and go straight to the nervous system. And I was like, I feel like this might be it.
Yeah. Cool. You mentioned, of course, depression. Can you say more about what those depressive episodes, if there had been several, if there had been more than the one that you just mentioned, what those were like for you, and how they were holding you back?
Yeah, for sure. I think the first time I experienced a depressive episode was, I want to say 2018. And that was the worst that I've ever experienced it. I remember struggling to get out of bed before 2 p.m. and just feeling no motivation and no energy at all to do anything. And I would say that what I experienced in April wasn't that. Like, that's definitely the worst that I've ever experienced it. But what I experienced in April was just a sense of overwhelm. And I remember feeling like I didn't know how I was even going to make it to the end of the week. Like, it was just like, I feel stuck and I can't get myself to do anything. And I don't really know what the answer is.
Yeah. And so something is calling you to visit us at Enfold to reconsider your initial impression of 5-MeO. Is there some point, some next step in the journey towards, engaging in this experience that you recall as part of the journey there?
Yeah. So I listened to every single episode of this podcast just to get a sense for what the experience at Enfold was like. And I also reached out to some friends who I saw were following Enfold on Instagram to see if they'd gone through the experience. And I had a bunch of people say, I haven't personally gone through it, but I know people who have, who say nothing but incredible things about the experience. And then I had my friend Robbie say, I think this would actually be perfect for you. And Steve's actually one of my best friends. Let me connect you to. And so he connected us over text. And I think we hopped on a call the next day. And I had this call with Steve, and I just immediately felt this sense of, I think, trust and safety with him. And I just felt like, he knew what he was talking about. And I just loved how just intentionally designed the whole experience was, from the preparation process and the intake to the actual experience at Enfold over the course of the week and the integration. It just felt so intentional and considered and supported. So I felt like, I remember saying to Steve, actually, it feels like a full body yes. But I did have one hesitation, which was actually, I think, two hesitations going into it. One was because I was in this depressive state. I was at the point where I was considering going back on antidepressants. And I remember saying to Steve, are there any contraindications with antidepressants? And I remember what he said to me, because I think it really shaped my healing journey. What he said was, there's no contraindications. We've had, many participants in the past come to Enfold on antidepressants and have a really powerful experience. The one thing that I will say, though, is that antidepressants kind of do the opposite of what work that we're trying to do at Enfold, which is, an antidepressant takes what you're feeling and puts it in a box and kind of shoves it in a corner. Whereas, the work that we're trying to do at Enfold is really about digging deeper to get to the root of what's actually going on. And so I just remember him saying to me, if you feel like going back on antidepressants is the right decision for you, there's no problem at all. But I just wanted to let you know that it has the possibility of dampening your experience at Enfold. And I remember hearing that. And I remember just thinking to myself, like, if I'm going to make this big investment in Enfold, I want to set myself up for success to have the most powerful experience that I can have from the medicine. And so I made a decision in that moment that I wasn't going to go back on antidepressants, and I was going to just double down on kind of all of the natural antidepressants, exercise and meditation and therapy, and just go back to these modalities that I know are really helpful, that I had, for some of them, lost sight of for a while. And so I think that was really powerful, just to hear what the impact might be and know that it was still an option, but choose otherwise. And then the other thing that I think was really powerful in that moment, when I did make the decision to sign up for Enfold, was I was at the point, like I said, where I didn't know how I was even going to make it to the end of the week. But the next opening for an Enfold intensive wasn't for another 2 months. It wasn't until early July. And at that point, we're talking early May. And so I thought to myself, like, I don't know what's going to happen, but there's a really good chance that in the next 2 months, something is going to shift. And so I'm just going to choose to believe that things are going to get better in the next 2 months, because I knew that if I was in the headspace that I was in May, that I just wouldn't be in the right place to have the full transformation at Enfold. But I think choosing to believe that things were going to get better was actually what kickstarted things getting better, because I think in a matter of like a week or two, things started they started to feel lighter and they started to feel better. And yeah, I really believe that just making that decision was what started all of it.
Yeah. Sounds like it gave you something to look forward to, something to put some hope in the somewhat near term. Yeah.
Yeah, for sure.
Yeah. And of course, don't want to ask you to share any more than you're comfortable sharing, but you touched on something that was contributing to the at least episodic depression. Can you say more about, why you think you had experienced that throughout your life? What was causing the depression, whether there were individual or more global factors contributing to that?
Yeah, it's a good question. I think I don't know about the linkages between all the different times I've experienced it, but I do know the last few times I've had depressive episodes, it's often been because I'm just not doing enough of the things that light me up. And I'm in a place where I'm shaming myself for not being productive. And yet the reason that I'm not being productive isn't actually because I lack the discipline, but just because I'm working on the wrong things. I think that's all I really have there.
Yeah, that's fair. Yeah, thanks for sharing that.
Yeah, of course.
And so, jumping ahead 2 months and you're about to arrive or just arriving with us at Enfold, do you recall what emotions or things you were feeling coming into that process?
Yeah, so I had two big fears coming into Enfold. The first, as I was listening to actually the podcast episodes, I remember hearing a lot of people talk about reactivations that they experienced after the ceremony. And I think the stat was like 25% of people experienced them. And in my mind, I think because I didn't know what my ceremony would be like, I just assumed that reactivations would be like night terrors where I'd like wake up screaming and sweating, and I live by myself. And so the idea of experiencing that on my own just felt pretty scary. And so that was something that, made me nervous going into the experience, but not enough to have me say no. And then I think the bigger thing that I was worried about heading into the Enfold experience was I was really worried that I wouldn't remember any of my ceremony at all, and that I would feel like I wasted the money, and that I hadn't gotten any big downloads or insights or shifts. And I'd had a psilocybin ceremony maybe a year and a half before I came to Enfold where that happened, where for maybe 6 hours I was actively moving around and processing something and working through something. And then by the time I came back down, it felt like my memory was erased and I had no recollection whatsoever of any of my journey. And it was really discombobulating. And I was worried that was going to happen again at Enfold, especially knowing that, 5 has the ability to kind of take away your consciousness and put you in a different experience. So I think those were my biggest fears coming into the week. But I was also just feeling really surrendered and hopeful.
Yeah, I'd love to circle back to that, but I don't want to, skip over anything before doing that. Do you recall, Amanda, the first medicine experience on the Monday, the Meet the Medicine ceremony, what that was like for you, and what you recall from that?
Yeah, I'm so grateful that was there. I think I've never vaped before, so I was so worried about not inhaling properly. And so it was, I think, so nice to get so many chances to just practice inhaling and holding the vapor in our lungs and just kind of letting the medicine take hold. I remember going pretty deep, even from the Meet the Medicine ceremony. And there were instances where I just felt like I kind of dissolved into nothingness. I still had consciousness, but I just kind of everything kind of went blurry, and I was just in this experience where, I remember crying at some points. I remember kind of vocal toning at some points, and not feeling like I had control over it, but still being aware of the fact that I was there.
Mm-hmm.
But I think what was really beautiful is at no point did I feel like I had to fight my ego to surrender to the medicine. It was just, it felt so safe. And yeah, I'm just really grateful that we got so many chances to experience the medicine before the full dose ceremony.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Do you feel like that experience helped you to build trust in yourself and in the container, having that first low dose experience?
Yeah, for sure. I think just trust that my body, knew what it was doing, and that the medicine would, give me whatever experience that I was meant to have.
Mm-hmm.
I definitely, it's funny, I just reread my journal entry from right before my full dose ceremony. And I had so much fear about doing it wrong. Like, I was like, what if I don't inhale properly and I don't get, as deep as, a deep of an experience as I could have? Or like, what if I ate too much for lunch and, it's going to impact the, the effects of the 5. But it's just so funny because I think the medicine has a wisdom of its own. And sure, there's like a certain level of like, you need to inhale the vapor, but beyond that, it's on the medicine to take you on the journey.
Mm-hmm. Thanks for sharing that. Yeah.
Yeah.
And so the meet the medicine ceremony is first day. Following day is a bit of a different experience, using heart medicine in a relational workshop like ceremony, like setting. How did that impact or shape your experience?
Yeah. It's funny because coming into the week at Enfold, but before we got to Bowen Island, we had done a group call on Zoom maybe 2 weeks before the experience. And I remember going on that call and, seeing that I was the youngest person on that call, and seeing that there were only 2 females out of the 6 in our group. And I think it filled me with some apprehension that I wouldn't feel like I belonged to the group. But what I experienced during the Sangha ceremony was just this deep sense of connection with everyone. And I think I was able to see just the humanity of it in everyone, and see that, despite our age or our gender or our race, like, we're just so similar in so many ways. So I think it made me feel so much more connected to the group. And I think from a personal level, one big insight that I got from that ceremony was, I've spent so my intention coming into the full dose ceremony was all to feel worthy of love, and that was really the theme throughout the week for me. But I got this kind of download during the Sangha ceremony that I've been so fixated on this idea of me holding up a shield and almost like blocking other people's love from coming into me. And I realized there's so much love that I have within myself that I want to let out and let myself feel. And so it was just this nice reframe of, not needing to be so fixated on letting other people's love in, like also just allowing the love within me to come out and to feel that.
Amazing. How is that, if it is, how's that showing up for you differently today?
I think I just have so much more self-love and compassion, and I've really shifted my relationship with myself from a place of criticism and judgment to compassion and love.
Beautiful. Yeah. No understatement. Yeah. Lovely. And so, then jumping one more day ahead to what many people would consider the marquee experience of coming to a 5-MeO intensive, or coming to Enfold, the full release ceremony. Yeah. How was that for you? What do you recall from that? We'd love to hear more.
Yeah, it was really beautiful and powerful. I like to say that there were 2 parts of my ceremony, because there was kind of the first 20 minutes that I don't remember at all, but I was able to witness through the photos and the videos and the notes that you took during the ceremony. And then there was the last, 30 to 40 minutes that I do remember. And I'll share both, but I want to start with the second portion, because what I remember was essentially being reborn. Like, I remember just crying like a baby, and feeling this unconditional, universal sense of love and acceptance and support. And it just felt like, I wasn't being rushed. No one was trying to stop me from crying or trying to quiet me down. I was just being loved and accepted for just being me. So I think that in and of itself was a huge nervous system, I guess, rewiring that was really powerful. And I remember at one point just so desperately wanting Austin to hold me, but feeling so scared to ask for it. And I remember going back and forth in my head around whether I could verbalize that and whether I could ask for it. And then eventually I mustered up the courage to ask for it. And Austin immediately came over and put her head down on my chest and put her arm around me and just held me as I cried. And it just felt like an imprinting of maybe something that I didn't get as a young infant, that now I was able to see that, I'm worthy of asking for and receiving love. And so that was really, really a beautiful moment. And then after the ceremony, I remember going out to the deck overlooking the ocean with Austin, and she gave me a hug and just turned to me and said, you're so easy to love. And yeah, at the time, I thought that she was just referring to me crying and her holding me, because that's all that I remembered. And I kind of assumed that was what my entire ceremony was about. And it was just really beautiful to hear that. But I think now that I know what happened during the first part of my ceremony, it gave even more weight to what she said, which I'll come back to. Because for the first part of the ceremony, and feel free to, I know you were there, so feel free to jump in with any details that I'm missing, but I, inhaled the vapor and went deep almost immediately. I don't remember you counting down from 10 at all. And from what Steve shared with me, like, I immediately started shrieking and growling and vocal toning, and shaking my head back and forth and kind of grabbing at my chest. And I can see some of these things in the videos and in the photos that you've sent. And what I think is so cool about that experience is, I shared with you earlier that one of my biggest fears was that I wouldn't remember my journey. And yet I just know that had I been conscious for that part, I wouldn't have released the same way. Like, I would have felt self-conscious and embarrassed to be so loud and to, make all these movements. And so I just have this deep knowing that whatever was meant to be released in my body was released. And I'm so grateful that I wasn't conscious for that part, because it allowed me to, I think, release in a way that I wouldn't have been able to otherwise. So that was really powerful. And the other experience around just seeing these videos and photos of myself was, I just felt so in awe of this version of me that showed up, because I think I got to witness this version of me that she was the embodiment of love. And she just knew that she was so worthy of taking up space and airtime and being loud. And I've grown up kind of feeling like I need to stay quiet and stay small in order to be worthy of love. And so to see her just be so expressed and so loved and accepted, and then at the end of my journey to hear Austin say, "You're so easy to love," knowing that I had spent 20 full minutes just being super loud and shrieking and growling and making all these noises, I think really just rewired something in my nervous system. And I think it's so powerful to know that this version of me lives within me and I can access her at any time.
Yeah, kind of letting that part of you have space and breathe and be expressed. Yeah, amazing. And you mentioned earlier in the conversation that one of your doubts or things that you were unsure of or concerned with was what you had heard about sleep disturbances and what we sometimes call reactivations, which are, of course, an integral part of the process. Did you experience that? And if you did, what were they like for you?
Yeah, I mean, not to the degree that I think some others had. I definitely had sleep disturbances where I think the night of my ceremony, I don't even know if I slept at all. I was just tossing and turning a lot. And I think the day after that as well, I had some issues falling asleep. But in terms of reactivations, I heard someone talk about the idea of reactivations being like rememberings, which I really liked. And I think it makes it sound less scary, which is great. The one experience that I did have that I think, I don't know if this was just because I wasn't sleeping or if it was reactivation, but I had this really powerful experience the night of my ceremony where I met these two younger parts of myself.
Mm-hmm.
And I remember meeting this 3-year-old version of me who, her belief was that she was only worthy of love and connection when she was sick or suffering, because what she observed was, if she was good and she listened to her parents, her mom would still leave and go to work. But if she was sick or suffering, her mom would stay home and take care of her. And so she kind of equated her mom leaving as her not being worthy of love. So that was kind of girl one. And then girl two was an 11-year-old version of me who had learned to believe that if she was suffering for too long, she would lose the love and connection. And I remember feeling so fascinated that I had these two younger versions of myself that wanted the exact same thing. They both want love and connection, but they're taking two completely opposite approaches to trying to get it. And, they'd never met each other. And so it was just, they've been going through life thinking all along that they're the enemy when really they're on the same team and they want the same thing. And so that was, I think, the most memorable reactivation or, thing that came up during night school, as you call it. And I actually, after I got home from Enfold, I took that experience to my internal family systems therapist and asked him to help me have a conversation between these two girls. And what was really powerful is we first met with the first girl, and she was exactly what I thought she was. And all she really needed to hear was that, her mom wishes that she could stay home with her, but she needs to go work to support the family. And that was enough for her to understand that her mom leaving didn't mean that she wasn't worthy, and kind of dissolve that belief. Where it got really interesting was with the second girl. When we met with the second girl who had this belief that if she suffered for too long, she would lose the love and connection, she surfaced this memory of when I was, I don't know, in grade 6 or 7 maybe. And I went to the school that the whole school went from grade 1 to 12. And so you knew people from all the different grades. And it was this memory of really wanting the attention of this girl in grade 12, but her choosing instead to spend time with the girl who was a bit younger than I was. And I remember feeling really sad and jealous and asking her, why she spent time with this girl. And her response was, I need to spend more time with this girl because she's new to the school, and her mom specifically asked that I help get her integrated. And I remember hearing that, but what I internalized in that moment was, I'm not being chosen because I'm not tiny and cute and blonde, and because I'm Asian. And what was really powerful when that truth surfaced and I realized what I had internalized, I realized that belief was at the root of me cheating in past relationships. And it just unlocked a newfound sense of compassion for myself, knowing that belief had started when I was 11 or 12. And I think when I talk about, struggling, feeling worthy of love, part of it has been growing up, going to a predominantly white school and feeling like I wasn't worthy of love because I wasn't blonde. But another part of it, I think, really came from me cheating in relationships and feeling like I wasn't worthy of love or an amazing partner because I had done that in the past. And just to be able to understand that belief and that behavior started when I was 11 allowed me to have compassion for myself around something that I've held in shame for, the last 10 years. And I just, no part of me thinks that, what I did was right, but it's just allowed me to unlock a level of self-love and self-compassion that hasn't been there for so long. And I'm just really grateful that I got the chance to meet with that girl and kind of understand what her story and her belief was all about.
Yeah, beautiful.
Yeah.
And if you're in touch with it, Amanda, how do you feel that enhanced self-love and self-compassion is helping you now today? How are you able to show up differently in your life as a result of making contact with that experience?
Yeah, I think it's completely shifted how I go through my day to day. Like, even when I'm trying to think.
Yeah, take your time. It's okay if you don't know. It's a big question. But...
No, it's a good question. How has it shifted? I think that leading up to Enfold, kind of went through the world with a lens of criticism and judgment towards myself. And I think that this compassion for myself and my younger parts has really unlocked the ability for me to just have more compassion and be more patient with myself, even when things don't go according to plan, or I don't do things the way that I want it to.
Mm-hmm.
And I feel like I've just stopped counting myself out of things. Like, I think in the past, my belief that I wasn't worthy of love led me to do things like assume that people didn't want to spend time with me, or assume that, people didn't want to include me in the conversation. And I think I've just stopped having that belief and that behavior. And that's been really powerful from a connection perspective, because so much of the disconnection that I was experiencing was really just due to internal narratives rather than, actual reality.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. You haven't explicitly touched on this, Amanda, but I wonder if you're aware of how you're able to show up differently in a professional sense now that you've been through this process. I get the sense that you're somebody that is very gifted and driven in the professional sphere, for lack of a better term. Yeah. Are you in touch with how you're able to show up differently in those ways now?
Yeah, I think, it goes back to what I shared earlier around being out of alignment. I think for so long, I've allowed myself to play into this story that I am too lazy or I lack the discipline to be successful. But it's also confusing because I see kind of younger versions of myself that were super driven and had really strong work ethic. And so it feels kind of incongruent. But, leading up to Enfold, I was, in this state of constantly procrastinating and watching a lot of YouTube and Netflix and mindlessly scrolling on social media and just dropping the ball, quite frankly, on some of my work and missing deadlines and just feeling so overwhelmed, but also like I didn't know how to shift things. And I think since coming back, I think one of the biggest unlocks for me was the realization that, one, it was never discipline that was the issue. It was always a lack of alignment. But because I had grown up feeling like I needed to earn the right to rest, and I was having all these unproductive days, I wasn't giving myself the chance to rest or take space to get the clarity around what would actually feel aligned. And so I was just stuck in this headspace of like, I can't get myself to do the work, and I know it's not aligned, but I don't know what is. But I'm also not giving myself permission to figure out what is. Mm-hmm. And I think since coming back, I've really kind of rewritten the rules and started giving myself permission to, take the rest, to take the space, to spend time in nature, and do all these things before I feel like I've like earned it or deserved it. Mm. And I think that shifted everything. Like it's resulted in me feeling so much more inspired and confident and just grounded in the decisions that I make, both around work as well as outside of my relationships.
I love it. Yeah. Wonderful. Well, this has been such a great conversation, Amanda. I appreciate you taking the time. I'd love to ask you one final question that doesn't really have anything directly to do with 5-MeO, DMT itself, but will hopefully speak to just where you are now and what you've experienced. And curious to know, what are you most excited for these days?
Ooh.
Or what are you most looking forward to now that you've been through this process and given where you are now?
Yeah. It's funny because I remember on the last day of Enfold, Austin doing the like before and after the interviews. Mm-hmm. And at the time, just feeling so terrified of coming back to my daily life, because I was so worried that I would just come back and revert back to the same behaviors. But now I would say the thing that I'm most excited about is I've seen myself take so much aligned action since coming home from Enfold, both in terms of setting boundaries or closing off energetic portals with people in my life, to making hard decisions around consulting clients or running different events. And I just know that the more aligned action that I take, and the faster that I do this, the quicker the life of my dreams is going to come into fruition. And so I think the thing that I'm most excited about is I know with complete certainty that the abundance and the love and the connection that I've wanted so badly in my life for so long is inevitable, and it's coming into my life, and I'm excited for that to come in.
Wow. Yeah.
Yeah.
Can't think of a better way to close our conversation. Thank you so much for that.
Yeah, my pleasure.
Yeah.
Can I say one last thing, actually?
Yes, absolutely.
I just wanted to say that I have literally invested about $150,000 in my personal development over the last 15 years. And I can, without a doubt, say that Enfold was single-handedly the best investment I've ever made in myself.
Mm-hmm.
So thank you.
Wow. Thank you. Yeah. Thank you for including that last message. That's yeah, we're so grateful that you joined us, and that you shared some of your story with us, and hopefully others who will hear this, and yeah, it will help them along their journey.
Yeah, I'm so grateful for the opportunity to be on the podcast. And yeah, it played such a big part in my decision to come to Enfold. So hopefully me sharing my experience can help some others too.
I'm confident it will. Yeah. Yeah. Thanks so much, Amanda.
Thank you, Arthur.